At your job, do you ever have to deal with a nose roller? How about a snub pulley? Well, if you're installing a new conveyor belt system, dealing with the different components can sound like you're speaking a foreign language. Luckily, you've got a team ready to help. Grainger's technical product specialists are fluent in maintenance, repair, and operations. So whenever you want to talk shop, just reach out. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
We will not be held responsible for any hearing impairments or damage caused to you from excessive exposure to this sound.
That song.
I know, it's a great song, isn't it? Happy Friday, everyone. It is the 27th of July. Is it really that late in summer already?
Yeah.
That's not good. I'm not ready for it to be over yet. Because the boys of summer are playing, and even though my boys aren't doing as great, your boys are doing amazing right now.
My boys are doing really well. I'm actually shocked. I think they've lost 3 games in July, and they came back and scored 6 runs in the 9th inning tonight against Baltimore to take that win. It was the first time this season, I believe, that Baltimore has lost while having a lead after the 7th inning.
Hottest team in baseball right now. They swept the Yankees.
They did, and Boston, I believe. So congratulations to the Oakland Athletics. You're playing outstanding ball. And, you know, it's funny that the movie Moneyball just came out, and here they go, you know, everybody in baseball, I say everybody except the Yankees who just buy their teams, adopts the Billy Ball way and run manufacturing and on base percentage and so forth. And here he does it again. I'm amazed. They are their AAA team. Several of their players are playing down in the Sacramento club, the River Cats, earlier this season. But they're always fun to watch. They're a scrappy bunch.
Well, yeah, they're scrappy. They always play good ball, and they always play the East well, it seems. And I'm sure this is going to end up not being a show about baseball. If everyone's checking in right now, waiting for the Karen Harrington interview that we have, but they're like, what is going on right now?
Who doesn't like baseball?
I know.
We're good, red-blooded American boys.
I know, and we do have the Karen Harrington interview coming up tonight, probably in about 15 minutes or so.
I enjoyed talking to her.
I really enjoyed talking to her. It was a good time. She was very gracious with her time with us, and we appreciate it. And you'll hear that right around a quarter of the hour. Anything else? Hang on. Now, you told me a great story earlier that I think you need to tell tonight. All right, so...
Just because I want to hear it again, but I'm sure all 3 people that are out there listening would probably enjoy it also.
Everybody's seen a person like this, and it never stops being funny. So I'm walking down the street, and I'm waiting to cross the street, and traffic was against me, so I had to wait. And at the red light, pulls up a brand new, like, all-black Lamborghini, and it's gorgeous.
So a 1%er. Did you egg his car and yell?
He was chased by a whole bunch of people with signs, and they didn't shower, and it was bad. So you said, "Mom, go back home." He said, I'll be taking up residence in the basement soon. So as he pulls up to the light, and he's gunning the engine, wang, wang, and other cars are pulling up next to him, and I'm like, oh, I'm about to get a show. This guy's just going to, as soon as that light hits green, he's going to drop the clutch and hammer it. So
hang on, really? We don't have a sound effect. We have crickets and the President theme song. We don't have a car revving that you could have played for that.
I don't have anything up and ready to go for that. Sorry.
Okay.
So
sorry.
The light turns green, and I'm waiting for it, and I have, wham, oh, no, stalls it. All right. I know you're excited. Now, let me explain the driver before I keep going.
Describe him in depth, please.
Probably he was a white guy.
Well, why's he got to be white? Why is everything about race with you?
Because he was white. He was pink like me.
Okay. Then say pink.
He was 23, 24 years old, greased back hair. I swear to God, it was all greased back.
Dude, I'm picturing that video. I got a new haircut.
So he's got a A-frame shirt on or a tank top with a couple of gold chains. His buddy, you can't make this stuff up, guys. his buddy sitting next to him, dressed exactly the same. It was like they walked out of, like, I want to say 1992, like a rap video.
Okay.
So he stalls the car. So I kind of chuckle a little bit because it's funny. You see somebody like that. Like I said, it's a, what, $200,000 car?
I have no idea. More than I could afford.
So I'm like, all right. So meanwhile, he's got traffic behind him. So he restarts the car and he starts gunning the engine. I'm like, all right, here comes the show. Stalls it the second time. Now I am outright laughing. And I'm more than 6-7 feet from him, sitting on the corner.
Like out loud?
Out loud.
And his windows are down?
Oh, of course they are, because the radio was playing. Until he had to shut the car off to restart it.
Right.
So I'm like, so he gets it going again. I'm like, third time's the charm. Here we go. Drops it again. Now, even his passenger is laughing at him at this point. The driver is yelling at the passenger for laughing at him. Just all sorts of, like, it's his fault that this guy can't drive a Lamborghini.
Well, of course it is.
Behind him, and this is is it coup de grace? I don't know what that means.
It sounds really cool, though, so go with it.
Had a woman. She had to be early 70s, late 60s, in a beaten-up Volvo.
Okay.
Starts beeping the horn. How often do you see, and it was like a 1984 beater Volvo. How often do you see that, where they're beeping the horn for the guy in the Lamborghini to go? He gets the he gets the car started, so now the fourth time, red light, so he's waiting. So now, I'm laughing. Light turns green, dumps it again.
Fourth time.
The woman behind him, everything but flip him off.
Now, how old is she? Describe her. Is she like June Cleaver? What are we talking about here?
Aunt B.
Okay.
I would say Aunt B.
Aunt B, okay, and the Volvo is about what year? Tell me it was like
83.
Okay, perfect.
Dents all around, like missing hubcaps. I think one tire was a different size. So I'm watching her now. She backs up, and you can tell she's visibly upset, like aggravated. I'm laughing hysterically. She goes around him, and do you ever see the scene in Ferris Bueller's Day Off with the old woman when he's running at the end, and she's got the big Lincoln, and all you can really see is like the top of her head and her hands on the steering wheel?
Yes.
It was kind of like that. And she's peering out him barely over the passenger side window. Finally, he gets it going, and I'm like, there's no way. It was the most even clutch and accelerator exchange I've ever seen. I don't think he got over 10 miles an hour. Red light 5 seconds later. Now, I wanted to walk down the street and see if he stalled it again. I was laughing too hard. And he knew I was laughing too hard because I have an obnoxious laugh. Everyone who's listened to the show so far knows that without a doubt. And I made it blatantly apparent that I was laughing at this guy.
And what's even better than that is you could have jumped on a bike and gone and outran him, even though he's in a Lamborghini, because he clearly couldn't drive it.
Well, and I have two theories on a car like that.
Wait, you have two theories on a car or that whole situation?
On the Lamborghini and cars like that.
Okay.
If you're going to have the money to buy a Lamborghini, and I don't know if he owned it, I didn't get that far into it.
Who cares? It's hilarious. He thought he was too cool.
You drive it one of two ways. It's your baby, and you're very gentle with it, and it's a show car. You bring it by your friends, you know. You can't.
But why would you do that? That's not what it's built for.
Not what it's built for, but people do that.
Right.
Or you drive it like you stole it.
On a racetrack.
Nonstop. And that's all you do with it. You get it out. First of all, I wouldn't bring a car like that, and I was in the downtown area. I wouldn't bring a car like that downtown, because what's the point other than it makes you look cool?
Well, that's the point. You just answered your own question. Why would you ask a question and then answer it yourself? This is supposed to be a two-way conversation.
Why do you do this to me?
I'm just throwing it out there.
And he could do neither. That's what was funny. And the fact that his best friend or whoever the guy was in the passenger seat was laughing made it that much better. So that was my ha-ha for the night.
Okay.
I immediately called you.
You did.
Laughing hysterically.
Right.
And
I began laughing with you.
And shared that little bit of story with you. What about you? Anything fun and exciting going on with you?
No.
Good.
Nothing fun, nothing exciting. However, I did see a piece of news today that I found ironic.
Okay.
It is clear to me that the Catholic Church has a sense of humor. And, well, what?
Okay, I'll buy.
No, I'm not talking about, never mind. No, it's so there was a new archbishop named for San Francisco, and the new archbishop name that was selected by Pope Benedict the 16th was Salvatore Cordileone.
Right.
which is an awesome name in and of itself.
Yeah.
But Salvatore Cordileone was a huge supporter of Proposition 8 in California, which is the proposition to ban gay marriage.
And I'm not laughing at that.
Yes, you are. I'm laughing at the fact that the Catholic Church found a supporter named Salvatore Cordileone who supported the gay marriage ban in California to be the Archbishop of San Francisco, to me was awesome. So it proves that the Catholic Church has a sense of humor. So,
albeit a cruel and weird sense of humor. That is just, you want to talk about throwing somebody into the belly of the beast?
Yeah.
They're like, all right, so you were completely outspoken against gay marriage. Yep. And you led the charge against it. Yep. All right, we're going to send you to one of the most gay-populated places on the planet to serve as the...
Yeah, you're going to San Francisco. Congratulations.
He was just like, really?
Oh, no, I bet he was like, yeah, cool.
He's like, that's fine. I didn't like having a car without chips in the paint anyways, so...
I'm not, this isn't the commentary for or against same-sex marriage. This is a commentary simply on, we know what the Catholic Church's stance on it is.
Everybody does. If you don't know it, sorry.
We know that San Francisco is the capital of, and I'm being facetious, of course, but the same-sex couple capital of California for sure, if not the country. And so the fact that the Catholic Church found it necessary to place him in charge of, or be the Archbishop in that region.
All the places he could have went.
That was pretty good. But we also had a good day early this morning, our time. We were able to interview Karen Harrington.
Which was a great interview, and we're going to pull that up here in a couple minutes. Before we do, I want to talk about the bill that passed, at least in the House.
Well, hang on. I still want to talk about this interview.
Oh, I'm sorry. Are we setting it up?
Well, yeah. We got like 3 minutes before we said we'd play it.
Okay, fine. Let's set it up. No.
No, look, we had, and I really hope we get her back.
I totally hope. She was so gracious, and she was fun, and I was impressed with the information that she gave. And to the credit, and we took a lot of listener mail, and had some calls for suggested questions. We only had a limited amount of time, so we got to the ones that we thought should be done now, as people are kind of meeting her, hopefully on a broader basis. And then if she comes back, which I hope she will, we can get to further into the line of questions, and I've saved all the questions we got online. So we didn't ignore you if your question didn't get asked, but we had a tight, apparently, and I didn't know this, when you're running for public office, you're busy.
That's... I don't get that.
I've never ran for anything that hasn't come out of a deep fryer, so I wouldn't know. So apparently you have a lot of stuff going on all the time, and when you're really close to your primary, as she is down in Florida, I think it's a week and a couple days, you're super busy. I didn't know that.
Look, here's the thing. We actually put together a very comprehensive interview package. Not only for this particular interview, but that we're going to, because we have been contacted by other campaigns as well, in the wake of all this, to do interviews, and we put together a very comprehensive.
Let's talk about that part.
Hang on a second, there, Ace. So, where's Super Chicken at?
Super Chicken is, I don't know where he is. He's usually watching us.
Okay, we put together a very comprehensive interview package, and unfortunately we had to cut that down. We were constrained to approximately 20 minutes, and one of the things that we wanted to focus on initially was who Karen Harrington is as a person. We've talked about it on the show several times, as far as we need principled leaders, people who are going to run our country, who have values, who are not simply a D or an R, who are able to make decisions and vote their conscience. And so we wanted to find out a little bit about who she was as a person. Candidates can talk about issues, and they have their talking points posted on their websites and so forth, and those are pretty easy things. Anybody can look up and read. So one of the things we focused on in the first part of the interview is who is Karen Harrington as a person. I was very impressed with her. She was very pleasant to speak with. And, again, very grateful she came on. We look forward to having her again to come speak with us. Another thing we wanted to, because we didn't want to be completely void of any issue or any true substance beyond her as an individual, but we did get into a couple topics which we felt were important, a couple topics that encompassed a variety of other issues that we wanted to talk about. So while we realized we didn't get as in-depth as we would have liked, there were a couple questions that actually provided a fairly good insight, I thought, as to her
really good insight.
Yeah, into her political theology and where her vision is for this country. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Sean, and I think we should get into the interview. People have waited.
All right, so here's what we're going to do is in about 2 seconds we're going to start the interview. Afterwards, we're going to take a quick break, let you kind of process, and then if we have time, we have a couple other topics we want to get into tonight, but if we have time, we're going to take some callers, and if you have questions, you put it in the chat room or get to us on Twitter at SACheads, and we'll try to take them. So without any further ado, here's the SACheads radio interview with candidate Karen Harrington.
I just like you said adieu.
Hey, it's Sean and Clint here from SACheads Radio. On the phone with us right now, we have Miss Karen Harrington, who is running for Congress in the 23rd District in Florida. How are you, Karen?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on, guys.
I really appreciate you taking the time to be with us. Sorry. So let's talk about your background, if that's okay with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us what you're about.
Well, my family and I, we have been small business owners here in South Florida since 1974. We've just celebrated 38 years in business.
Congratulations.
Thank you. We expanded from one restaurant to 3. My younger sister, Michelle, and I, we run the family business. I've been here since I was 5 years old. I'm a mother of 3, grandmother of 2, very committed to the community. I always tell people the thing that separates me most from my other Republican primary is that I have a vested interest in the community. I've coached boys soccer and baseball for many years. We've donated back to the community through the Police Athletic League. We're just very involved with our community, making sure that our kids are raised in a good environment, a good community, and just proud to be a South Floridian.
That's fantastic. One of the questions I wanted to ask you about your business, and based on some comments recently, when the government gave you your restaurant, did you expect it to be around 38 years later?
No, honestly, Sean, if the government gave it to us, we would already be out of business.
And trillions of dollars in debt.
Yeah, exactly. So why did you decide to run for Congress?
Well, I started to recognize what was happening to the country when President Obama became in office, and I started to realize on a business perspective how hard it became for us year in and year out through, the uncertainty of taxes, through regulations, the cost of insurance, whether it's health care or liability or workman's comp. Just everything became more difficult for us to try to maintain our business. And I started to recognize the person that impacted my life the most, besides the president, was my representative, Debbie Wasserman Schultz. And then I really started to look more into her background and realized she's never worked in the private sector. She's never had a job outside of government. So how could someone like her really go to Washington and understand what people in business, the job creators, go through to try to stay in business, start a business, expand it? And I realized how out of touch she was. And then over the years, watching her, I realized how far to the left she has moved. And she'll do whatever's necessary to get reelected. She represents her party. She represents her own personal agenda. And she doesn't represent the will of the American people. So there's nothing worse than when you elect an official that doesn't hear who you are, the people, and the voice, and take that to Washington. And I realized that she needed to be replaced. And honestly, I have the experience in the community of being a small business owner, of being American, that understands the toughness of what government imposes on us. And I would go there to fight to make sure that America could be successful. And we can do that by moving government out of the way.
Well, and you kind of bring me to my next question is, what do you think the job of a congresswoman or congressman should be?
Well, absolutely. You're supposed to go there and honor the will of the American people, and you're supposed to represent your district and what's best for the people in that district. And anybody with any common sense would see that growing government, adding to our debt, raising taxes, borrowing from China, buying oil from overseas countries that harbor terrorism is not the American way of life. So I think the people of this district want to be heard. And my job is to work for them and go there with the things necessary to make America productive, to make us safe, to make us prosperous, and to keep us free. And she doesn't represent those things. And I want to, as I go door to door and I meet people and talk to them, it's very important that I understand what it is they expect from me. And I want to go there and honor their wishes. And you're not going to always make everybody happy.
No, go
but
ahead.
if you can keep the core principles and values of what our nation is about, why we were founded, then we can continue to lead the proper way. And leadership in Washington on both sides of the aisle are broken. And we've got to instill in the American people that we are going to go there as your new leaders and to do the right thing for the country.
And Karen, I'm glad, this is Clint, I'm glad you brought up principles and values, because it's something on this show that we talk a lot about, the need to elect principled leaders regardless of party affiliation. And one of the things we'd like to delve into a little bit about getting to know you is what personal characteristics or traits do you possess that will allow you to effectively fulfill the role of Congresswoman if elected?
Well, I think the most important thing is you have someone that's been a part of the community a long time. I mean, I'm risking our family name, our reputation, by going to Washington and taking this risk. I mean, I could not possibly come back to this district and live my life, and the people that are my customers, the over 100 people that we employ, and go there and do something that I wasn't saying that I stand for. So I think the biggest characteristic is just that. I have built over 40 years of my character in this community. These people know who I am and what our business has done, and I think that speaks volumes, not just because we've been successful in business, but we've been a part of the community. My 4 brothers and sisters still live here. My parents live here, my 3 children, my 2 grandchildren. We're not going anywhere. This is our home. And when you take that and personalize it as not somebody just moving into the district or running for office because they think it's a good thing to do, I care about my community. And that's why I've decided to step up and do something like this. And I think that's a characteristic that people are looking for, someone they can trust, because we absolutely do not trust our politicians.
Absolutely, and you bring up a great point. And another thing that Sean and I talk about this show is the need to understand our roots as a nation. Sean and I are both very proud of America as a country, and so we'd like to know how do you view the Constitution, specifically the relationship between the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution? There's a push in this country, and it seems like the left has divorced the Declaration from the Constitution, and I'm curious as to how you view those two documents, the relationship between them.
Those documents are the absolute heart and soul of our nation. We are such an exceptional nation because of those documents. We are the only country where our Constitution, our Bill of Rights, tell us what the rights are of the people. Every other country in the world, Constitution tells the people what the rights of the government are. We are exceptional and special, and we must adhere to that Constitution. We did not become who we are in 236 years because a government came in and ruled us. We, the people, rule this nation, and we definitely have gotten away from that in these last 4 years. So if we can just adhere to the basic, simple rules of the Constitution and honor those, our nation would be prospering, we'd be more free, we wouldn't be fighting to keep our freedoms, whether it's our gun rights, our religious liberties, and the left wants to take the Constitution and reinterpret it into rules or laws that absolutely don't adhere to those. So if we can get back to those, and I think that leads me to one other point I want to make. I think a lot of people don't realize the importance of this election, not so much to replace Obama, but if he ever has the authority in the next 4 years to appoint 1 or 2 more Supreme Court justices, our Constitution as we know it is done, because we will be ruled by the liberal left.
You're absolutely correct, and I've discussed this point before, where it seems as if there's almost no check on the Supreme Court. They all have almost unchecked power because their decision is final, and it takes literally an act of Congress to go back and change the law. But then the Supreme Court can come back and reinterpret it again. So you bring up a great point, and you touched on gun rights, which is a big issue right now in light of everything that's happened in Colorado. The left and the media and so forth has used this almost as a political pawn, I think, as Governor Christie put it, to push an anti-gun agenda. Where do you stand on that?
We absolutely listen. Our founders did not make it number 2 because it wasn't that important. It's right after.
I'm going to use that sometime.
Okay, right after freedom of speech and freedom of religion is our right to protect ourselves. It is a sacred, absolute, important constitutional right that we have as Americans. I'm an NRA member. I have a concealed weapons permit. I own a couple of guns. In fact, ever since that incident out in Colorado, I think I need to buy a couple more. We have to always have that right to defend ourselves. And unfortunately, every state has the right to impose their own laws based on that. So I want to live in Florida. I want to know I can carry a gun. I don't want to live in New York where it's stricter laws, to be able to protect myself. I will fight endlessly to protect the Second Amendment rights. I have an A rating now by the NRA, and it's just that important. Thinking of that being in that movie theater and 2 or 3 of those gentlemen having been in the military, just to think that they didn't think it was necessary to bring their gun with them to a movie theater. You can never think that you were ever safe anywhere. And if anything, that movie theater should have made us more pro-gun, that we need to protect ourselves at all times.
Well, and like everything else, too, is unfortunately people use that as an automatic springboard to support their cause. And I think the biggest thing that's being lost right now is instead of focusing on the victim's family and kind of look into this Holmes character and what driven to do it, blah, 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 everyone wants to make it about the gun. We've said on the show a million times, that's like saying, we should outlaw cars because people die in car accidents. It's not the tool or the implement. And I said last week, the amount of explosives and the sophistication that he had in his home that we're being told about, if guns had never shown up on this earth, if it was never an invention that even happened, he still would have found a way to commit this ridiculously heinous act.
Absolutely.
And another thing we'd like to touch on, we know our time with you is limited, so we appreciate you giving us this opportunity to speak with you. You touched earlier on fiscal responsibility and the budget. The U.S. right now has, a $16 trillion debt and over $1 trillion budget deficit. Obamacare, these other entitlements are basically going to push us over the edge to economic collapse. We can't sustain it. As a member of Congress, if you're elected, you'll have input over the purse strings of this country. How will you act in order to help turn this country around?
Well, I hope in January the first thing I get to do, and I know Congress has done it about 32 times already, is vote to repeal Obamacare, but I believe we will have a president that will finally sign on to that, and we got to get it through the Senate as well. But absolutely, Obamacare is a disaster in so many ways. First, we're lied to. It is a tax, and not only that, there's 21 new taxes in it that will affect all income levels of Americans. So we've got to go in there. We've got to address either a Paul Ryan budget, the Simpson Bowles, perhaps Senator Lee's Saving the American Dream budget, all 3 of those combined. But the first thing you have to do is something we haven't done for 3 years, and that's pass a budget for the annual year. And if you can't even decide what we can and can't spend in a year, and you're just going to continue to run it up, we haven't stopped the bleeding. So come up with a yearly budget, which right now exceeds over $1 trillion beyond what we take in. So we've got to start right there. And then long-term debt, the driving force behind that is our Medicaid, our Social Security, and our Medicare. So we've got to rein in that kind of spending. And it's a very large task ahead of you. I'm not going to say there's a simple answer, but until you elect fiscal conservatives that understand we cannot continue to give away things to the American people that we don't have and become a nanny state and head down European socialism, we've got to grab a hold of that. And right now we have the Department of Agriculture advertising for food stamps. They're trying to give away more of our hard-earned tax dollars that we put into the government and just continue to give it away so they can get more people on government. So that's why when people say this is the most important election of our lifetime, it is in a fiscal sense, but it's also in a moral sense, because we will lose more people that will depend on government that will never look, a conservative will never be able to win past this election if we don't start to rein it in now. We'll continue to elect liberals like my opponent, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, willing to give away everything to anybody at all costs.
It's almost like Cloward and Piven have a hand in this whole thing. Are there any federal departments that you would defund? For example, the IRS, because that would be awesome. Are there any federal departments that you would either reduce in size or defund in order to help control some of the spending? And an offshoot of that, I know it's a multi-part question, so I apologize in advance, but defense is kind of a sacred cow, particularly on the right. And new technologies and weapon systems have given us the ability to reach out around the globe from home and deliver greater firepower. Is it possible to still meet tactical and strategic goals while cutting defense spending and reducing our forces abroad? So kind of a two-part question. What departments, if any, would you reduce or defund? And also, how do you take the Defense Department into account with that?
Wow, well, there's so much waste in government. I'd have to say the first thing we start with is the EPA and almost scale them back to such a minuscule role in our life, because we do need regulations that help keep our environment safe and protect consumers, but they're way out of control, so we've got to scale back the EPA. And another department I see is the Department of Energy. What energy? So you have to say,
the ones we send overseas and give money to foreign countries, that energy?
Yeah, I mean, the Department of Energy, and every year they ask for more money for Congress, and they always get more money. So we're giving more money to the Department of Energy, which really isn't going out and finding more energy for us.
No,
so,
if anything, they're finding reasons not to use the energy we could have.
Right. So that's another department. And, of course, Department of Education, we're failing our children miserably at the federal level. We've got to give that back to the states and let them know how to manage education for the children in their state. So those are the three key ones. There's a numerous amount of departments, but we can start right away by cutting 10% to all departments. When it comes to the military, I'm sure the military could find ways in cuts as well, but the enormous amount of cuts that this president is implementing is close to $1 trillion in cuts. We will suffer militarily, both here at home and abroad. These cuts are too severe. They're too quick. And, we have to think about how to protect ourselves. But our biggest threat to our sovereignty and to our safety in this country is our debt. I believe it's the biggest concern we have to have. But with the military, I think the cuts are too severe. But is there waste in there? Absolutely. So we've got to go in and just do the really tough job of making tough decisions to make these cuts.
Well, and I couldn't agree with you more. There has to be some way to find it. And we know, as well as everyone else, that government waste is out of control and has been for years. And every time it tries to get reined in, people find new reasons not to.
What are you talking about, like the biofuel the military is experimenting with?
Yeah, exactly.
That's great, right?
What's it, $59 a gallon for jet fuel? Unbelievable. I could not even kind of run my house that way. So our final question, and I know you've been gracious enough to stay with us, tell us why the people of the 23rd District, in closing, and we'll give you the final word on this, should vote for you.
Well, thank you guys both so much, Clint and Sean, for having me. The people of the 23rd will be very well represented in Washington because they're going to be sending one of their own. They're going to be sending the girl next door that's lived the life they've lived in a community that she's been dedicated to, both through business and in her personal life, someone who will honor the Constitution, who will serve the will of the American people and recognizes what's happened in Washington and how broken it is, someone who has never aspired to be in politics, but just truly feels that she's being called to serve. And I look at it as more than serving. I look as we are in the fight of our lives. And I'm that girl that's going to fight for the American people and what's right for this country. So they can always count on Karen Harrington to represent their values, their principles, and bring that to Washington.
Karen, thank you very much. And how can the people find out more information about you?
Well, the quickest way is firedebbie.com.
I love that website, by the way.
And that'll get you right to my website. You can see all my issues, find out more about me, and sign up for the newsletter, make a $5 contribution, whatever they can do to help us out.
And you're also all over Twitter. We see that on a regular basis.
Yes, thank you, guys.
No, we
thank you.
really appreciate it. Karen Harrington, ladies and gentlemen, stick around. We'll be back in a second.
Thank you, Karen.
Hey, it's Sackhead Sean. It's time for the Wicked Pissin' News.
Vanessa Fields for Sackheads Radio. A UN treaty to regulate the multi-billion-dollar global arms trade will have to wait after members of states failed to reach an agreement, and some diplomats and supporters blame the United States for the unraveling of the month-long negotiating conference. Hopes had been raised that the agreement could be reached on a revised treaty text that closed some major loopholes by Friday's deadline for action. But the U.S. announced Friday morning that it needed more time to consider the proposed treaty, and Russia and China then also asked for more time. The raging civil war just across the ceasefire line in Syria is posing an uncomfortable political choice for the Druze people in the Israeli-annexed Golan Heights. Do they maintain their traditional loyalty to the government of Bashar Assad, whose family has vowed to take back the territory, or should they support the burgeoning Arab revolt against Assad's harsh rule? Illinois Congressman Jesse Jackson, Jr., whose whereabouts haven't been disclosed since he quietly took medical leave from Congress several weeks ago, is being treated for depression at the Mayo Clinic in Minnesota, according to a statement released by the hospital. Jackson is undergoing an extensive inpatient evaluation for depression and for gastrointestinal issues, the hospital said, providing the first details about his medical condition. But the statement released late Friday didn't disclose where the longtime congressman, son of civil rights leader Jesse Jackson, had previously been staying. Former graduate student in the deadly Colorado movie theater shooting was being treated by a psychiatrist at the university where he studied, the first indication that he may have sought help before the rampage that killed 12 people and wounded 58. Attorneys for James Holmes made the disclosure in a court motion Friday as they sought to discover the source of leaks to some media outlets that he sent the psychiatrist a package containing a notebook with descriptions of an attack. High unemployment isn't going away, at least not as long as the economy grows as slowly as it did in the April-June quarter. Weak consumer spending held growth to an annual rate of just 1.5%, less than the 2% rate in the first quarter. And few expect the economy to accelerate in the second half of the year as Europe's financial woes and a U.S. budget crisis restrain businesses and consumers. The growth estimate Friday from the government suggested that the U.S. economy could be at risk of stalling 3 years after the recession ended. Economists generally say even 2% annual growth would add only about 90,000 jobs a month. That's too few to keep up with the population growth and drive down the unemployment rate, which is stuck at 8.2%. Mitt Romney's support for Israel will likely earn the presumptive Republican presidential nominee a warm welcome from Israeli leaders when he visits on Sunday, and a frosty reception from Palestinians who fear he would do little to advance their stalled statehood dreams. Romney is visiting Israel as a part of a three-nation foreign tour that includes Britain and Poland. He hopes it will boost his credentials to direct U.S. national security and diplomacy. NBC Bob Costa noted a controversy over honoring Israeli athletes killed at the Olympics 40 years ago during his coverage of the opening ceremony, but stopped short of offering his own protest. The International Olympic Committee had declined a request to hold a moment of silence during the ceremony to acknowledge the 11 Israeli athletes and coaches killed by the Palestinian gunmen in Munich in 1972. Costas called the decision insensitive during an interview this month and indicated he would call for his own moment of silence when Israeli athletes marched into the Olympic Stadium on Friday. Sorry to have to do this, but it's time to head back to Sackheads Radio.
So that was good. That was the interview in the entirety. Welcome back to Sackheads Radio and a Friday Night Fiasco. I just came up with that.
The Friday Night Fiasco?
Friday Night Fiasco.
Is that going to replace After Dark?
No, that's going to be totally different from our After Dark shows because our After Dark shows have to be a certain level of special. Like we are at times.
We're a certain level of special all the time.
So if you have any feedback, we'd love to hear from you. But right now I kind of want to move into, you know Mayor Bloomberg, don't you?
Not personally. I know who he is. I know he doesn't like big sodas.
That's not. Oh no, that is 100% true.
Yeah, no, he doesn't like. I mean, he may like them, but he doesn't like you to like them.
Yeah, I bet you he's drinking more and more soda on a regular basis than anybody else.
You think so?
Yes.
I disagree.
No, I disagree too. I was just being facetious. So the other day, he, in light of the Aurora, Colorado shooting, which everybody has been using on the left, gun control has been using it to kind of spearhead the gun control argument yet again.
And even Miss Harrington picked up on the gun control
in the interview
as well.
Yeah, and it's just,
we got into a lot of different topics for a relatively short amount of time.
I know we did, and it went fast. It went too fast. I wish we had more time. I really do.
Well, hopefully she'll come back.
But they're using this to springboard once again the gun control, and they're exploiting the victims of this tragedy, giving a pass, in my opinion, to the cretin and the monster that committed the act. And Bloomberg, who's always at the front of the gun control, which kills me because I know New York's done better on their crime recently, but it's not exactly like they have a shortage of gun violence that they can tout how well they do with their gun ban, because they pretty much have a complete gun ban in the city unless you're, law enforcement or special privilege. I'm sure there's some citizens who are connected politically have guns.
Has New York's gun laws, the city's gun laws, ever been challenged?
I don't know. I know D.C. and Chicago did, and both of them were found to be unconstitutional. So
we need to explore that more.
We do need.
But go ahead. What did Bloomberg say now?
Bloomberg was on CNN the other night talking to Piers Morgan, and he was talking about gun control. And I'm going to play his comments, and we'll come back and discuss it really quick.
Every time one of these things happens, Gabrielle Giffords last year, this shooting here, there's an outrage, and then very quickly it dissipates. The American people quite quickly go back to their normal lives, and they don't demand action in the way that I would expect them to. Why do so many Americans not feel angry enough to demand further gun control?
Well, I would take it one step further. I don't understand why the police officers across this country don't stand up collectively and say, we're going to go on strike. We're not going to protect you unless you, the public, through your legislature, do what's required to keep us safe. After all, police officers want to go home to their families. And we're doing everything we can to make their job more difficult, but more importantly, more dangerous by leaving guns in the hands of people who shouldn't have them and letting people who have those guns buy things like armor-piercing bullets. The only reason to have an armor-piercing bullet is to go through a bullet-resistant vest. The only people that wear bullet-resistant vests are our police officers. And that's true across this whole country. So we should, at some point, we have to understand this is our children or grandchildren or us. But for the police officers, it's much more immediate, because when you and I hear shots, we run away, they run towards it.
So that was Mayor Bloomberg, and essentially what he was asking for was for law enforcement across the nation to strike. Correct?
In the name of gun control.
In the name of gun control, to strike. So, first of all, this just shows a complete lack of understanding for the men and women who put the uniform on of a peace officer throughout the country, and the dedication that they have to protect the citizens and to uphold the rule of law and the Constitution, and to knowingly risk their lives for the people that they're sworn to protect. And the fact that a politician could look at that and expect them just to go on strike to protest gun control. Look, law enforcement officers understand, and I know several of them. My hat's off to all of them. Law enforcement officers understand the risks that they take. And the vast majority, I'm not saying, look, there's bad eggs in every profession.
No matter what profession.
I get that. But the vast majority of them understand the risks involved. They understand that it's a dangerous profession and that they may have to one day give the ultimate sacrifice, lay down their life in order to help save and preserve the fabric of the community.
Well,
they get, so how can you, not you, Sean, but you, Mayor Bloomberg, ask those men and women to strike in the name of a political cause and completely disregard everything that they are and everything that they believe in, and put the citizenry in even greater danger because now you don't have a law enforcement presence to help deter crime or anything else. Well, not to mention, I'm pretty sure it's illegal in most places for law enforcement to strike.
And I thought that right away is most law enforcement aren't officially, quote-unquote, unions in the natural sense. They're associations, and striking is not one of the things that they can do, despite everything you saw in RoboCop. Nice reference.
Nice reference.
Thank you.
I'm so angered.
Out about Mayor Bloomberg. He did recant the next day. He went on.
That's a shock.
I found this on Newsroom America. He said, I didn't mean for them to literally go on strike. And he went on to say, keep in mind, it is the police officers who run into danger when the rest of us run out. He repeated that. And he said, I'm counting on them to help us lead the charge. Against what? And here's my thing about them going on strike. First of all, it would never happen. But can you imagine if it did? It would never happen because you and I both know that people who go into professional public safety, one way or the other, the whole reason they get into it, and I know I've had friends who are firefighters, police officers, EMTs, stuff like that. They get into it for the first reason is to help other people.
Absolutely. They genuinely care about the society that they're sworn to protect.
So that's
most of them.
Complete bunk. You know what this is? It's once again just him creating a soundbite that'll get pushed around a lot to push the gun control advocate.
Well, hang on. I have something on that also. I mean, you said, Roberto, hey, imagine what would happen to our cities, counties, and so forth if law enforcement basically took a vacation.
Well, then the feds would
good luck. Well, then the armed citizens could protect themselves. No, they couldn't.
Not in New York?
Not in New York.
Can you imagine that?
How about this? How's this for a spin? Officers, law enforcement officers, firefighters, so forth, I believe firefighters, but I know law enforcement officers, just because the friends that I've talked to, we've had constitutional discussions several times, and I have a couple who are police officers, and they take an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States as well as the Constitution of whatever state they're a part of. So, and we're going to get into a constitutional historical perspective of the Second Amendment here shortly, I hope, if we have time to. And so, okay, Mayor Bloomberg, now these officers are swearing to uphold the Constitution and the Second Amendment as it's originally intended to be upheld, because last I've checked, there's no other amendments in there that has changed the original intent of that.
Well, like Karen said earlier, there's a reason why it's a second. It's kind of important.
It's kind of important. So, yeah, you're right, Mayor Bloomberg. I think law enforcement should lead the charge in protecting our rights, and particularly that one.
Yeah.
So we have a caller waiting.
We do. We have Mike on the line, and hopefully he's still with us. Hey, Mike, you there?
Hey, Mike.
Yeah, I'm still here, guys.
Hey, how you doing tonight?
How you doing tonight?
Doing good. Just staying up a little late. Better half out of town visiting relatives, and saw you guys were on. Listened to the show a little bit, so I thought I'd call in. Sounds like Bloomberg's had too much soda.
Which is weird, because he needs to probably outlaw that so he doesn't make these mistakes again.
That's right.
What's your question, buddy?
Well, I've got a couple of things, and I kind of lean to being a moderate. I've got some of the conservative issues, some of the liberal issues. I go both ways on things.
Okay.
And the gun control thing, as you guys are talking about, one of my best friends is licensed, and with some of the things that we do, which I won't get into from time to time when he's carrying, I'm glad he's packing. When we head out with him and stuff like that, it gives me an extra sense of security, especially when he told me that he has the right not only to defend himself, but myself too if I'm with him at that point in time. I think that some of the things on the liberal left, when they talk about taking guns up and this and that one of the points, and I'd like to see guys like you, conservative, along with some of the liberals, meet in the middle somewhere, that if you're going to create an illegal market, there's too many guns out there. There's no way to do away with this. If you closed every gun store tomorrow and nobody could purchase one, there's still plenty of them out there. You're going to create another illegal market. They're going to start coming back across the border from Mexico instead of us sending them over there. So that's not the answer. But one of the answers is,
what you have in Chicago, and what happened in Chicago is guns were banned for so many years that the only people who had guns were the criminals and the law enforcement, and the criminals greatly outnumber the law enforcement. Their murder rate, their crime rate is always through the roof. So that doesn't seem to work. And how long? I mean, I think it was something like, I don't have the exact number, 30 years or something like that since they outlawed guns, and it's getting worse.
And there's already a huge illegal market for firearms, with basically just the ones that are illegal on the federal level, and California's gun laws are extremely restrictive.
So go on. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I wanted to make sure that point was kind of made.
Good conversation. My point would be, and I'm going to let you guys say specifically to make sure I had it right, this latest thing in Aurora, what were the guns that he took in there?
I believe
he did have
a
semi-automatic rifle, correct?
He had, but a semi-automatic rifle can be, I mean, that can be anything. That's just how that particular rifle functions. So it could be an AR-15 style platform, which looks like a military weapon in that it has a pistol grip. It's capable of accepting a removable magazine. But the gun still functions semi-automatic. That just means that it's not a revolver. So you can have a semi-automatic pistol, which means it's magazine-fed. It has a slide that works, and that's how the weapon cycles, as opposed to a revolver where the cylinder spins around. Now, you can have fully automatic weapons, which would be like a semi-automatic rifle that if you depress the trigger one time and you hold that trigger to the rear, that weapon is going to continue to fire rounds until the magazine or the ammunition is exhausted. And fully automatic weapons are illegal federally. So those aren't legal. No, the
one
gun
he had
weapon
was
ban.
legal. He purchased that one legally, my understanding.
Yes, he did.
And the thing is, it did jam on him, which probably saved a few lives, and that's not really my point here. But my point is that you guys, I'm going to assume here from the first part of your show that you're both conservative, and I support that. Like I said, I'm a moderate. I go both ways on different subjects. But the thing
I'm more
is,
of a libertarian.
There you go. That's me. That
yeah.
If you had the kid next door, that and everybody's had one, and I'm not trying to pick on anybody here, but everybody's moved into a neighborhood where you've got the parents that don't watch the kids, the ones that you see maybe smoking at an early age, a little bit of the rough crowd around and this and that, he shows up with one of these, purchases it legally, walking around in the driveway, the backyard, next door to your house and your family. I'm not comfortable with that. If he's got a handgun, if he's got, weapons for defense, a revolver, something that you can defend your household with, something that you can carry on your person, that you can do. I'm not against that. But as conservatives, and I'm not saying you guys are, but should the conservatives and the liberals not maybe meet halfway, and the liberals quit saying we need to do away with all of them? Why don't we turn around and say, nobody goes out with one of these semi-automatic rifles so that they can knock down 4 deer in 5 seconds when they're hunting? It's just ridiculous.
There's a lot that goes into shooting, especially if you start talking about hunting and these other things. And the semi-automatic, again, is just how that particular weapon cycles. And there's a multitude of platforms out there, and it's not. I think a lot of times there's a confusion between what a fully automatic weapon is versus just a semi-automatic rifle. Most rifles out there today are semi-automatic. There are some bolt-action rifles that are used, but even hunting rifles and so forth, a lot of them are semi-automatic rifle platforms. But the argument that I make, or the position that I take, is we have to look at the law as it stands now, the Constitution. And if you study it from a historical perspective, and you look at the writings of the founders, from James Madison and Samuel Adams, I mean, all the founders, when they were talking about the right to arms, the purpose that we have the right, and this is historical fact and context. I'm not saying this is what we need to do today by any stretch of the imagination, but the whole purpose for an armed citizenry was to prevent the government from becoming too powerful and too tyrannical, as well as for defense. So defense of the home in order to be able to repel a national standing army, because they really feared a standing army and a really powerful government. That's the purpose. And I hear the argument of, well, back then it was muskets. Well, what was the military standard of weapon back then? It was the musket, and that's what the citizens were allowed to have, were the muskets. That was the purpose of that. So if the discussion is we as a country don't think we need that today, then maybe there should be a constitutional amendment in order to change or interpret. And I'm not saying I support this, but I'm saying if we're going to change the interpretation of it, if we're going to change it, then we need to do it the proper way, which would be through the amendment process for the Constitution, and say that, hey, the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed for personal defense or defense of this country. However, these types of weapons maybe not be allowed. But while I understand a lot of times I think in this issue people argue from a perspective of emotion, and I understand. I would not want somebody, as you described that situation, right next to my house either, but that would be something that would need to be addressed by law enforcement or by me if need be, or whatever the case would be. But we argue from a position of emotion in that, well, I just don't like that. That would be an uncomfortable situation for me. And while I may agree with you, I may agree with you, the law and the Constitution as it's written and as it's intended is for people to be able to have those weapons so that we can defend ourselves not only individually but also against an oppressive government or even a foreign invading force if our military is unable to defend us. Go ahead, Mike.
One of the questions I bring up, I agree with you on about 90% of what you said. And one of the things that I bring up with some of the blogs that I get into and some of the other political discussions that I join in is that if you yourself inherited a business that your great-grandfather created, that had set down a set of rules and laws for the business and had been very, very successful throughout, the 80, 90, 100 years that it had been open. And you had now inherited this business and you were beginning to fail miserably. And as you sat down with your board of directors, some of the changes that you felt you needed to make to adapt to today's society, to compete in today's market. And they said, that was not what your grandfather wrote down or your great-grandfather wrote down. We need to stick to what he put here. Granted, he had no clue what the business environment was going to be like in the year 2012 when he started this business. But this set of rules has gotten us to where we are. They may be killing us now, but we have to stick to them. That's the problem I have when the conservative base says, let's stick to the Constitution. If it makes sense, yes, let's stick to it. If it does not, then let's use an amendment. Let's change it. These things were written way back in the past when it was a completely different world. And that, if somebody, just like the lady you had on earlier, comes up and says, look, I don't want to just stand up on ethics and morals and say that I support the people in this and that. Give us some solid answers. Come forward and say, this is what we need to do. Don't just turn around and basically try to attack the moral character of your opponent politically and say they don't support the people. They may not support her people, but they may support some. Give us an answer. Let's take the ethics and the moral fight out of it, and let's see who has the best answer, just as you might do if you said, I've got two groups of people to help save my business. You guys come in, and if one says, well, we don't like this group, we think they're terrible, and the other group says, we don't care about the other group. This is a business model that we have set forth for you, and this is how we think you'll succeed. Who would you go with?
Mike, I like your answer first of all of hey, who has the better answer. I like that. The other thing I like that you said is if the business model doesn't work, and I understand you're referring to the Constitution, then let's come up with amendment, because I can support changing the Constitution through the amendment process, because that is what has been handed down to us as far as the proper procedure for changing these things. However, if you're unable to get the requisite votes to get a constitutional amendment, absent that, it is illegal to put restrictions on and to suppress the rights as it's written. The Constitution, the founders understood that there may be that there would be a need to change things as we went on, which is why they put the amendment process through. But if an amendment is unable to go through and people don't like that, so they start changing it and tweaking it anyways, that's fine when it works for your side of the argument and not you specifically, just throwing that term out in general.
Right.
What happens when it's the other side that starts doing that? That's a big problem. And that's why that amendment process is put in there, and why I think it's so important we stick to that, because so much has been watered down through interpretation. And when we went to the standard of case law as a way to look at the way we do and interpret things in the Constitution, that now you start to slowly erode that. The other thing is, and we touched on a little bit in the interview, is the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. A lot of people study those as two separate documents. Because one was written by Jefferson and one was primarily authored by Madison, so you have one that's really flowery and sounds really nice, and the other one that reads more like a law, because it is. The two need to be taken together, and there are certain universal truths of mankind that the founders understood, specifically when it comes to power and being in in positions of power. And they studied the governments dating all the way back to ancient times, and so they designed our government in order to place limits on man's natural tendencies towards power. And so while what was written specifically may be dated because of the time in which it was written, the principles that they're founded upon, the principles that these writings are based upon, that our government is set up upon, transcend time and date back to ancient times, where we talk about the government and how they become corrupt, which is why the power is vested in the people to prevent that. And the people have failed. We have failed miserably in this.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah.
Yeah, we have, and it's our own fault. But,
well, and before you go too far, I'd like to get your comments on this. Is like you said, I think the problem here is that your politicians are worried about getting reelected. They're not worried about fixing the problem.
No, which is why nobody will touch Medicare or any of the other entitlement programs.
Exactly. So you've got people on both sides going to extremes to support their base.
Absolutely.
And the thing is guys like you having shows like this and us, what I call the general public, need to quit turning around and saying, no, I'm either very conservative, I'm very liberal, or I'm getting on Facebook, social media, beating the crap out of each other and talking about this. And let's just come up with some good common sense answers and say that's not a conservative answer, that's not a liberal answer, that's an answer that might work.
It's an American answer.
Yeah,
it's an American answer.
And, Mike, just touch on the social media. I understand that we probably shouldn't go back and forth and beat it. But if you're really trying to kill time and get a good laugh, it's a wonderful way to do it. I mean, seriously, go down in the dumps, jump on Twitter for a little bit, you'll feel better about yourself like that, or Facebook or anything like that.
And Mike, I really like what you said about people coming together and form a solution. And Sean and I have talked about this on our show, where we don't care about the D or the R. I tend to be fiscally conservative. I tend to be socially libertarian. So I go various ways also depending on the issues, but I can say, hey, I am a fiscal conservative when it comes to things. And I mean, even as you can tell in the interview, we asked Ms. Harrington about cutting defense, and so that's not a real Republican view, That's
right.
That's not, but it's something that, hey, let's face it, needs to be taken into consideration. But
well, and something you may add to that if you have somebody like her on again is not only cutting defense. I'm not sure, that I completely and totally support the, Obamacare and helping those that can't seem to help themselves. I think there's a small percentage out there that we should look after possibly as a nation. But look at the money that we spend, abroad, not necessarily sending our military over there, but just in the infrastructure of trying to rebuild some of these countries and helping everybody else over there. Let's cut that off. How much have we spent over in Pakistan? How much are we giving to India?
Absolutely.
Billions of dollars.
When we talk about defunding Obamacare, we're not saying that people should be left on the street to die and we should just start the wagons like they have.
Because that happens all the time in this country.
Right. What we're saying is you have to – I said from the beginning, we need a level of health care reform that's not oppressive, that you can sell across state lines. It's common sense. The states have the majority of the power. The federal government does not need to be in it. The federal government needs to do what they're supposed to do in cases like that and just deal with interstate commerce aspect of it, which they have the right to assist in.
The federal government cannot solve local problems, and each state, each county, each city has its own specific local concerns, be it healthcare, be it a homeless population, be it drug abuse, whatever it is. And who knows best how to deal with those issues? Is it somebody in Washington, D.C. who's thousands of miles away, or is it the local people?
Well, and it's one of those things for me, too, where I said, there are people who definitely need help and definitely need to be taken care of, and I understand that, and I don't think they should be denied. The problem is the way the system is so abused and exploited right now is those people aren't getting the services they necessarily really need because other people are just collecting the paycheck that could be going to better causes. And when you get rid of that, you also get rid of the overall abuse, and there's more money that the government will have in their pocket versus just shelling out every month.
Well, and I have the solution to the whole problem, guys, if you want to hear it. I really do.
Absolutely.
I think I figured it out.
We're all about solutions.
Absolutely.
In any of us that have employers that provide insurance or that have private insurance, we're going to be completely and totally left alone. Those that don't, Walmart needs to start up hospitals and medical clinics.
Well, I've said this
medical.
Well, look how Kaiser started.
Kaiser's, on the West Coast.
Yeah, Kaiser on the West Coast was started.
I say that jokingly. In 10, 15 years, we could see it.
Yeah, well, no.
Well, yeah.
I'm going to Costco right now for my law degree. Well, and
I bought Cracker Jack.
Yeah, exactly.
By the way, how is that not racist?
Oh, God. Can we just move to the topic?
I'm sorry.
One of the things that I said
got a picture of a white guy on the front. Call it Cracker Jack. Sorry. If
you're going to talk about real health care reform, allow these companies to sell across lines. Allow more competitions within states because you're going to see the price go down. Also allow local coalitions like, you have to be part of a job for 90 days and that job has to have health insurance and you pay your part, they pay their part. I think of like a group of farmers in the Midwest that live in, and I don't want to say in the middle of nowhere in a negative way, but live pretty far out. They're an individual farming family. There's only, 3-4 people per family. I'm perfectly okay if 10 of those farmers get together, agree on a package, get a deal, and go into it together. And that's fine as long as that state allows it. And,
right.
You can do a lot of things other than say to the American government, you're either going to have health insurance or we're going to tax you. And I don't care what Obama said. His Solicitor General went in front of the Supreme Court and pretty much said if you don't look at the interstate commerce, then you have to view it as a tax. And I actually think I have the clip if you want to hear that clip. But so I don't think the government has the right to tax you into something. And I think it was Scalia who said in an early conversation about it is, at what point can they extend that and keep extending that to they're saying you have to buy broccoli because broccoli's healthy. And that's the danger with rules with laws like Obama.
Well, or the other side. What if the right came out and said, you know what, everybody has to own a gun. It's no longer an individual choice. And if you don't, because you're putting American lives in danger because of wingnuts like this guy in Aurora, Colorado, you failed to carry a gun and protect the general population, you have to pay a tax. What if that doesn't work for you, for your family? What if you don't want a gun in your house because of children or whatever the case may be? That's not a personal choice. But now the other side of the aisle is saying, hey, guess what? What's good for the goose is good for the gander. Therefore, we're going to tax you on it.
And
I think that's the danger in this.
And Mike, the other thing to think about, too, we talk about Aurora and gun control. You look at a lot of nations that have had coups and the government's been overthrown. One of the first things that started to be happening when the government became oppressive is they eliminated firearms. They started collecting weapons and taking weapons away from the people.
Adolf Hitler made the Jewish population register all their firearms before he confiscated them.
Yeah, and there was a mass of Christians that was killed in Africa when I forget which government it was, but they took all the citizenry guns away from them. And sorry, I had to take a breath. And then began a form of genocide. So you have to watch things like that. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm not saying we're on the brink of that. But we are in turbulent times in this country right now. There's a lot of unrest. A lot of people are we're very polarized, where a lot of people are standing on one side. Nobody wants to budge. It is scary from time to time. Never mind now the economy's bad. There are people out there committing crimes to get money for whatever reason. It gets worse and worse. And my next argument to the gun control thing is, what was in his apartment? And I brought this up last week. What was his apartment? Do you know, Mike?
The bombs. You're talking about the tripwires and the bombs.
He had some pretty sophisticated explosive devices. He wasn't a dumb man.
Very bright guy. He was a very bright guy. Yes.
Yeah.
And obviously suffered from some form of mental illness. And I'm curious to see if we find out in the future, could he have been somebody that had experimented with pharmaceuticals or something like that himself?
But my point on that is, if guns were never invented, and I said this last week, this guy was going to kill a lot of people one way or the other. And for whatever his cause was, for whatever his insanity, he would have found another way. And this time, yes, he used a gun, but say there was no gun. He could have used those explosives instead of his apartment and set it up around that movie theater. It could have been a lot worse. You know what I mean?
He could have become a pilot, rented a plane and crashed it into the movie theater.
Unfortunately, sick people are going to do sick things. It happens all over the world. But the argument we made last week is, hey, what if there were a couple of guys in that movie theater, a couple of gals, that had their own gun and could have fought back? And even if it was a distraction to get...
Like the guy in Florida.
Like the guy in Florida. That was our point last week. You have to take into account that bad people are going to do bad things, and sometimes good people need to have the resources to do the right thing.
I agree with you 100% on that.
And when you start limiting good people and their resources, then that's when we start to get into trouble.
Well, and you have to apply what I love to tell people, which is my 5A and 1A high school rule, which is our population is increasing. And I often tell people this, and it's a very simple explanation, the difference between a 1A and a 5A high school team, which I'm sure you guys know why the 5A is going to beat the crap out of the 1A, is just that when they field that team, they have a larger population to pull from. You're going to have more talent. As population increases here in the United States, we're going to have more psychos. This is something that's not going to stop.
And you're going to see it more with the media and the way we exploit it. And like right now, you know, it's being so politicized. And like I said, I feel for the victims in this, and I feel for the victim's family, because there hasn't even been a mourning process before people started. And I think that's what's getting me more mad than anything else is, hey, yes, this happened. Let's focus on the victims. Let's focus on the victims.
Right.
Let's get them some help. Let's not make a damn political argument out of this once again to make ourselves look great come election time. Because you know as well as I do, a lot of gun control stuff, and I know the White House said we're not going to discuss gun control. They say stuff all the time, but the left amazingly starts doing all the stuff the White House says they don't want to deal with right now. It's all political. It's all personal political game. So, November's around the corner. It's a damn lie. And they're just exploiting those poor people, and it disgusts me.
You know, you talked about if there was no gun, then there would still be mass murder.
Right.
February 3rd, 1780, there was a mass murder. It was not committed with a firearm. 19-year-old Barnett Davenport, who was a farmhand with a particular family, with a wooden farming instrument, clubbed to death the parents in their bed, burned the clothes, set fire to the house, and ultimately killed, in addition to the parents, he clubbed to death the two children that were inside the home. No firearms involved in that one.
That's a great point you bring up. And by the way, guys, I do a blog talk show myself. I do. You probably never guessed the topic that I'm on, but I'm a host for Dead Air Radio.
Okay.
You know,
let's check it out.
I'm involved in the paranormal. Been involved in it for a long time. And even though it's a touchy subject and a lot of people go one way or the other, the one thing through my research in the years that I've been involved in this, you bring up Iowa, the Vasilla axe murder house. You know, most of the so-called ghost stories, which I'm a big skeptic on it, that's why I'm in that field, that I hear story after story of people who have gone insane, or we assume insane, you know, and have killed their parents, killed a family, gone into a house and this and that. And that's what creates so many of these, what we call these, you know, 80, 100-year-old haunts in places like that. And I will tell you, 95% of them, there was not a gun used. It was some other form of weapon, you know. So Lizzie Borden, you know.
Yes. Borden, and where I come from, you know, I grew up, born and raised in Massachusetts, we had the Boston Strangler. He was a serial killer. He killed a lot of people.
What kind of gun did he use?
He did not use a gun at all.
Oh, I'm thinking of Jack the Ripper.
Oh, this is what I have to deal with every night.
I'm sorry.
Hey, Mike, we're going to take a break. If you want to stay on hold, I'll be happy to keep you on hold. And if something comes up, we can come back to you. We will. Is that good?
Yeah, if you guys, I'll stay here and listen. If you guys have got other callers, I don't want to take up your whole show, but I'm enjoying the conversation. If you'd like me to stay, I'd love to.
Yeah, we'll keep you on hold, and if there's something we're going to come back and check in with you on, we certainly will.
You bet. Sounds good.
All right, we'll be
Thanks,
back
Mike.
in 2.5. This is Sean and Clint with Sackheads Radio.
Sackheads Radio.
Hey, this is Sackhead Clint. We're fortunate enough to have our friend Vanessa do our news briefs. If you like her news briefs, she is a voiceover talent. Check out Platinum Vocal Cords. She has over 15 years radio and voiceover experience. Graduated Northwestern State University with a liberal arts degree. Don't let that scare you, folks. She is a true sackhead. Please check her out. Again, that's PlatinumVocalCords.com. Thank you.
Hey guys, it's Sean from Sackheads Radio. I want to talk to you a minute about our friends over at HomefrontHugs.com. They're an amazing organization of volunteers who take their time, effort, and money to take care of our troops overseas as they serve our great nation. HomefrontHugs.com. You can donate, write letters to troops, adopt a troop, you name it, you can do it. Help those wonderful folks who protect our freedoms. Go to HomefrontHugs.com. Tell them Sackheads Radio sent you.
Hey guys, it's Sean from Sackheads Radio. I know I've said it before. Check out our friends at conservativeoutcry.net, but I really mean it. If you want interesting and exciting political commentary and analysis, that is the place to get it. Different, always spot on, always truthful, never pulling a punch. conservativeoutcry.net. Tell Rooster to get Bulldog back on and that Sackheads Radio sent you. And also, coming soon, the Sackheads Radio Forum on conservativeoutcry.net.
Hey, this is Sackhead Clint. I want to take this opportunity to thank all the wingnut leaders throughout the world to give our men and women of the armed forces a job, as well as all the anarchists, terrorists, and Occupy folks that give our men and women in uniform on the home front, firefighters, law enforcement personnel, and first responders, job security here in the States as well. So thank all you wingnuts out there. This is Sackhead Clint saying have a good day.
Due to the graphic nature of this program, listener discretion is advised.
3, 2.
I realize you're still doing the countdown. We discussed previously that it's completely unnecessary.
Hey, now welcome back. Our true professionals, Sean.
All right, so you know what? We're going to bring Mike back up on the air because he said something. We talked about it during the break. And hey, Mike, you with us?
Yeah, I'm still here, bud.
Hey, we talked about it during the break because you only touched on it. You said you do a paranormal show on Dead Air Radio.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
And why don't you tell us a little bit about it? Because you struck our interest when we were at the break. We talked about it real quick. So before we jump into our next segment, we're going to give you a few minutes to tell us about what you do.
George R. Lopez, not the one that used to have the TV show, out of Fort Worth, Florida, I became friends with back a couple of years back, and back in 2011 he asked me to start co-hosting with him. Me and him have been doing the shows together for quite some time. We kind of anchor the network. We go 2 hours a night, 7 nights a week. And we have some other hosts and people from around the country
I have to
scattered
stop
out.
right there.
You bet.
2 hours a night, 7 nights a week?
Yes, sir.
Wow. How do you have the sanity still? I'm
not on every night. I'm on Monday through Wednesday.
We do our weekly show. And for us to get this together by the end of the week, it's a sprint. We're literally running into the studio at the last minute. How do you do that every night?
I'm not on every night. I have rotated around. I do jump on when I have time. I thoroughly enjoy doing them. I don't know if you guys watch the Paranormal, but our show has really taken off this last year. Just a week ago Tuesday, we had Grant Wilson from Ghost Hunters, who, if you guys watch the show, he was on with us. Paul Bradford. I have taken over Wednesday nights again, and I host. George is working 5 nights a week now in the entertainment business that he's in. So he's not able to do Wednesdays with me anymore, but me and him still do Monday and Tuesday night. I do Wednesday nights, and we call that Paranormal Kool-Aid. It's a little different twist on the normal paranormal shows, and I've got a lady from New Jersey and then a gentleman from El Paso that join me as co-host on the show. We have a lady that does a ladies' night on Thursdays. Then we have a Club Para with a group out of Rhode Island that does the show Friday, did that show tonight. And then on Saturday and Sunday, we dedicate that more to some of the younger people getting involved in the paranormal and upcoming. We do a lot of UFO, a lot of Bigfoot, which does include the paranormal category. A lot of people don't know that. And it's just general good topic discussion about the community. It's a growing community. There's a lot of shows, American Horror Story, School Spirits. On that, we're in with My Ghost Story, a lot of the producers and stuff. We get them as regular visitors. As I like to say, and one of my favorite shows is No Reservations with Anthony Bourdain. And one of the goals we have for our show is that some of these people, like we've had Nick Groff, Zach does not come on shows from Ghost Adventures, but Nick Groff and Aaron come on. We have become that Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday show that we never know who's going to show up. John Zappas, the haunted collector, comes on and talks to us. Amy, his daughter, that we can look up at our chat room, and we've got the who's who of the paranormal. It's kind of like the underground cool place now to come and talk a little paranormal.
Well, so you're kind of a pro at this, so I appreciate your feedback, and I appreciate you hanging out with us. So I wanted to bring you in and give you a minute to talk about that because we both thought it was interesting, and we both agreed you were a great caller, so we wanted to give you a second to tell everyone what you were all about. And we're going to jump topics and throw you back on hold because we wanted to talk about, we wanted to get into a little bit for our last segment.
I want to talk about this ridiculous military biofuel thing.
Hold on, Mike, I'm going to put you on hold. Go ahead, Clint.
Hey, Mike, thank you very much. Great caller, and again, thanks for telling us about what you do. And those of you that are listening, I want to check out his program. So the Air Force is testing a biofuel, which is awesome, right? Because we got to go green. The Navy's going green. They're coming up with this green fleet. Guess how much? No, never mind. Don't guess because you saw the article. $59 per gallon.
Well, isn't that what we pay right now at the pump anyways?
Exactly. So if it's not that much more cost effective, so $59 per gallon. The Air Force tested this biofuel in their jets to see if it would work. Apparently it did. My understanding is there was a study done in biofuel is 20% less effective than petroleum-based fuels, which means you'd have to spend 20% more, and at $59 is a lot more already.
Like $17, and that's just a quick
we talked about defense waste earlier in the interview.
Yeah, and a little bit of fiscal responsibility with the defense aspect of our country.
The Navy, in their green fleet, spend $26 a gallon for biofuels. So that's a lot cheaper. That's good. Good, Navy. Good job. Where does the president find these generals and admirals to say, hey, I got an idea. We're going to spend $59 a gallon on biofuel. We don't even know if this stuff's going to work. Or, hey, let's do $26 a gallon in biofuel, which is less efficient and could potentially damage our equipment that costs a bunch of money.
Millions of dollars.
Yeah, we're just going to go with it.
And I want to know too how much government money went into the research to develop these biofuels that are now being sold back to the government at an inflated cost.
I don't know, and I don't know where. They got their I don't know where they got their fuel from.
Somebody's in Colorado, I read.
Okay, so the petroleum is costing approximately $3.60 a gallon.
Yeah, and I'm sure they get it at a cheaper rate.
Well, I don't know what rate they get it at, but about $3.60.
Because they don't pay the federal and state taxes on it, and that's.
Well, they should.
They should, but they don't, and I think that's at least minimally a third of the cost.
They should pay taxes on that, and people who are obtaining government assistance from whatever state or federal program should also be paying taxes on that. But that's a whole different discussion. Don't get me going right now. Sit down.
Sit down.
Because
you're always yelling at me.
$3.60 a gallon for petroleum-based.
Tonight, so help me.
I missed that. I was too busy talking.
I said, if you shoot an other elastic at me tonight, I am going to find something to throw back at you. Because right around the 15th one, I started to get annoyed.
I've seen you throw.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah.
Go on to what you were saying.
You have a less efficient fuel at a $26 a gallon for a naval ship, $59 a gallon for whatever reason the Air Force bought it out. I just think this is a ridiculous waste of taxpayer money, and it goes to the whole we can cut defense, folks. If they have money to spend on this kind of trash,
we can cut it.
We can cut it.
Well, and this brings me to the bigger picture of how this country is getting shamed, and I use that, and I know I'm going to get yelled at, shamed into going green before it is feasible. And I'm not one of those people that don't...
Or cost effective.
Well, that's what I mean by reasonable is cost effective, financially reasonable. I'm not one of those people that don't think that we need to be a little bit better to our environment in some ways. I don't want people throwing toxic waste in the lakes, nothing like that. But...
Are you kidding me?
What?
Genetic mutations are hilarious.
Well, if they work right.
I'm kidding.
Because you get superpowers. I know that for a fact.
Well, that's what I'm talking about.
But when you start pushing everybody before it's financially sound to these biofuels and green and all that other stuff, and we've already seen all these companies that are going out of business that the government dumped hundreds of millions of dollars into for the green side of it. But we kind of have what we have now where it's really expensive to have. They're forcing a lot of these big businesses to go green, and just the resources aren't there. And I want to know how much billions of dollars were spent trying to develop these green cars when they could have, and I don't know if you told me this, somebody else.
Not only the green cars, but like the red ones and the blue ones.
The electric cars.
Yeah, all the different ones. They have more colors than just green.
And I don't remember who told me, but they brought up a really good point. They said that, the internal combustion engine was made to be about 35% efficient, and Detroit and everyone went, yeah, that's good enough. And they've never expanded the research.
They've never needed to.
Huh?
They've never needed to.
Right. Well, apparently they need to change something. But you push everyone towards biofuels and green and these batteries, and, the fact that the Prius does more to the environment just in the production.
That's so great. I think that is hilarious.
That's one of my favorites. And if
I laugh at people.
I read that a while ago. The amount of damage the Prius does when it is being developed and shipped before it is sold, not developed, but built and shipped before it's sold with the battery, does more damage to the environment than most cars driven in the span of 10 years. So all you Prius people,
that's so great.
Way to kill our environment.
Here's we're getting into a little bit into energy policy here, and we've talked about this. My philosophy on energy policy is I'm one of those. Hey, everything. I agree we need to move towards more eco-friendly fuel and find ways to get energy that is cleaner for the environment. I don't want my kids, you don't want your kids playing in nasty smog-filled air like is in L.A. or being exposed to these other things. I think a clean environment is good. I think we should be moving in that direction. That being said, we are not there yet. We are not there yet technologically. We are not there yet to be able to do it in a cost-effective manner, as you indicated. That doesn't mean I don't think we should be moving in that direction, researching to get there, and that having to be a goal that we are actively moving towards, because I agree that is a good thing. However, in the interim, we need to not only have that as a goal and move towards it, we need to power what we have now and what we are going to continue to have for the next several years. Therefore, we should be exploring our own resources in oil. We should not be outsourcing drilling projects and so forth to other countries, or giving money to Brazil or to Mexico and have them drill in the Gulf and these other things. We should not be doing any of those things. I am okay with nuclear energy. It is a clean, efficient form of energy. I understand the risks involved in having a nuclear power plant. You know what? Nevada has a huge desert. There are places in this country that are outside of large populated areas, and where we won't harm our environment, where we could continue to provide energy to this country and be there for our children and our children's children for generations and generations while we move towards this green, solemn utopia. where nobody farts and there's green fields everywhere and daisies to run through. Okay, got it.
Okay, go on.
Thank you. So I'm for drill, get our own oil reserves, become energy independent.
Get out of OPEC.
Get out of OPEC.
Out of OPEC.
Do the nuclear energy. Hey, explore wind, solar, hydroelectric, everything. Let's get power.
Energy.
Let's get power where we can as we move more off of petroleum-based fuel sources, coal and so forth, and transition to greener energies and bring it about at a pace where we can make that transition seamlessly. So that's my own and humble opinion, world according to Sackhead Clint.
No, I agree with you. And, it doesn't happen often. But I do agree.
It actually happens a lot.
In this case. We have to find a way where we are not bankrupting the country, not bankrupting the people. We use less fuel now than we ever have in this country, but yet gas is costing, well, it's down a little bit now because we're going to the elections, and it's going to go down even more to November, so you can say, look at what I did.
Look at what you did?
Look at what I did, the president.
The who?
What? The president.
Is he here?
Wait.
He.
Look around.
Is he? I don't see him.
He did offer for an interview.
Is he here? When did you get Lincoln logged? I need to build something.
I know. I got to make me a house. Why do we do that to ourselves? I always get off.
I don't
forget
know.
where I was going.
Let's take a break.
No, hold on. I got to finish up. You throw me.
I can feel synapses trying to fire in that brain of yours. This is great.
No, but we get caught up into this of gas being what it is, and it's higher now, but yet we use less. Isn't that like a flag that something's going on? Like when it was 99 cents and we would literally pouring it down the sewers because, well, obviously.
It's fun.
Those of us that had an SUV must have hated the environment. That's what we were told over and over again. But now we use far less, and we're paying so much. It tells you that something's wrong with the system in general. And when it comes to oil specifically, it comes to OPEC. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a break.
Hang on. The other alternative is that the dollar, which is what the price of oil has been tied to on the global market, has totally been devalued and tanked, and therefore it takes more of that dollar to purchase the same product, and therefore prices have gone up. A completely unrelated topic, though.
Not at all.
Just spitballing here.
So we're going to take a break, and then we come back. We're going to wrap up the show. We'll be back. This is Sackhead Radio.
Hey, this is Sackhead Clint. We're fortunate enough to have our friend Vanessa do our news briefs. If you like her news briefs, she is a voiceover talent. Check out Platinum Vocal Cords. She has over 15 years radio and voiceover experience. Graduated Northwestern State University with a liberal arts degree. Don't let that scare you, folks. She is a true Sackhead. Please check her out. Again, that's PlatinumVocalCords.com. Thank you.
Hey guys, it's Sean from Sackheads Radio. I want to talk to you a minute about our friends over at HomefrontHugs.com. They're an amazing organization of volunteers who take their time, effort, and money to take care of our troops overseas as they serve our great nation. HomefrontHugs.com. You can donate, write letters to troops, adopt a troop, you name it, you can do it. Help those wonderful folks who protect our freedoms. Go to HomefrontHugs.com. Tell them Sackheads Radio sent you.
Hey guys, it's Sean from Sackheads Radio. I know I've said it before. Check out our friends at conservativeoutcry.net, but I really mean it. If you want interesting and exciting political commentary and analysis, that is the place to get it. Different, always spot on, always truthful, never pulling a punch. conservativeoutcry.net. Tell Rooster to get Bulldog back on and that Sackheads Radio sent you. And also, coming soon, the Sackheads Radio Forum on conservativeoutcry.net.
Hey, this is Sackhead Clint. I want to take this opportunity to thank all the wingnut leaders throughout the world to give our men and women of the armed forces a job, as well as all the anarchists, terrorists, and Occupy folks that give our men and women in uniform on the home front, firefighters, law enforcement personnel, and first responders, job security here in the States as well. So thank all you wingnuts out there. This is Sackhead Clint saying have a good day.
Due to the graphic nature of this program, listener discretion is advised.
3, 2, I love how you're still doing the countdown. We just got 3 to do it. It's completely unnecessary.
You know what? I need to check out that show, Dead Air. Hey, I got an idea. Since our country is dying, do you think? Why are you laughing? This is a very serious topic.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Do you think we should get a paranormal investigator to investigate?
I still got Michael on. You want to ask him?
No, because I'm not poking fun at his show. I'm just being totally sarcastic.
You're poking fun at the country.
Well, yeah. Let's ask him.
Okay. Hey, Mike, we're going to bring you back on the air and say, to answer the question. Considering this country is effectively dying, is there anything that the paranormal investigators can help us out with?
You know, send us to Congress. There's got to be a lot of ghosts in there because nobody's doing anything.
I don't think you're going to find a pulse anywhere in Congress, which is good because you guys can do something.
Well, hopefully this year we'll actually start to get a pulse into it. Hey, Mike, we just wanted to thank you one more time. We're getting ready to wrap up, but I wanted to thank you one more time. And where can people find your show?
www.blogtalkradio.com/deadair. Dead Air Paranormal Radio on Facebook and on Twitter.
Awesome. Thank
Sounds
you
good,
so
Mike.
much for calling in, Mike. Have a
You
great
bet.
night.
Take care of yourself.
You bet.
Awesome. So we had a good night. We had our interview.
We had our interview. That was a good caller.
We had a great caller. Mike was amazing, and hopefully he calls back.
I still think my favorite caller was the guy who was
just last week at
the impression guy.
Oh, he
was
me.
Okay. I want to bet methamphetamine or cocaine. I'm just.
I don't know.
That was so great. I love that guy. You know, there's like 4 cars taken apart in his front yard, a motorcycle and a lawnmower, and a cat.
And he's just running around with one sock on and a tank top in 15 below degree weather, feeling fine.
And a tooth.
Anything you want to add for tonight's show?
You know what? Thanks for listening and putting up with us tonight, folks. Karen Harrington was an absolute pleasure to have on. We have had a couple other candidates.
We're working on a couple of
reach out to us
right now. We've reached out. And
we've also reached out to.
Yeah. Once we start getting them back, we'll start announcing who they're going to be. We've heard from other people who run in the primary against Karen, and they're asking for equal time, and we may give it to them. Hopefully, Ken will also come back with us in August, and we can go forth. But she was a great interview. It was a lot of fun. It was great to hear her points.
I hope the Wasserman Schultz folks come on.
Yeah, and if they're listening, we're more than happy to have them on.
Absolutely. And
I know I'm reaching the end of the show because I'm having trouble talking.
You are, but you've also had a few drinks. No, I'm totally kidding. But we'd love to have her on again. We'd be fair and respectful, like we always are, even though we are completely sarcastic. But anybody who'd like to come on the show.
If you guys know of a candidate that's in your area that you think we would like to interview, would like to be interviewed by us, or if they have great points, shoot us an email.
Or if they have absolutely nothing else going on.
Yeah, or if you're bored.
Yeah.
Or, email us, fanmail@sackheadsradio.com, and just throw us the info. We've actually had a lead come in today on Twitter, and I'm going to jump on that too. Join us next Friday night for our weekly Friday Night Fiasco.
We need to post a picture of the chicken.
And we will post, if you go to the forums, go to conservativeoutcry.net and click on Sackhead Forums. We have a whole bunch of stuff going on in there. We're going to post our newest mascot. What did you name him?
Hank.
Hank the chicken?
Yeah.
We're going to show a picture of Hank the chicken. And as always, you can check us out, sackheadsradio.com. We're also on Twitter @Sackheads and on Facebook. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening, folks.
Next Friday night, same time.
Wait a minute.
Rock.